Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Authors on Mission podcast. Here's a question for you. What if the person you were meant to love lived on the other side of the ocean in a time when no country would legally recognize your relationship? Well, today we're joined by Dr. Patricia Grayhall, whose new novel, A Place for Us, transformed personal struggle into a sweeping love story that spans decades and continents. From Harvard Medical School to the Canadian wilderness, Patricia's journey as both a doctor and author illuminates the power of persistence, the courage required for authenticity, and the triumph of love over legal barriers. I'm really excited to dive in and chat a little bit about A Place for Us, in addition to some amazing, juicy writing tips. So without further ado, Patricia, welcome to the Authors on Mission podcast.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Likewise. It's going to be a lot of fun to chat about this one and, of course, about all the tips that come with it. So I'd like to get started talking a little bit about you. How closely does this book follow your own experiences?
Well, that I have to back up a little bit because my first book was a memoir, and I had no idea when I published that where it would lead me. And I was pleasantly surprised that I got a starred Kirkus review and the best 100 indie books of 2022. And that was great, and encouraging. Probably the best thing about it was that readers gave me feedback. I was so glad to find that, I felt the same way and I had similar experience. And so they felt less alone. And that was very gratifying to me. But the readers also said, so where's the sequel? What happened next? So I didn't feel that I had another memoir in me. So I wrote A Place for Us, which is basically autofiction.
Understood.
But, the core of the story comes from my experience with my partner trying to find a country where we could live together legally. She was British, I'm American. First of all, we met in 1981, and it was not possible for us to get together because of immigration barriers at that time. And then similarly, in 2003, it wasn't possible to immigrate as a couple in either of our home countries. But Canada would allow us to immigrate if we could prove that we had lived together for a year. But again, there was no country in which we could live together for a year. So it was basically a catch-22. So even though the core is related to our immigration story, it's also fiction. And so I blur the lines between fact and fiction so I can explore some interesting social and political themes as well. And for example, Joe is an environmental attorney, not a physician. And, her job is basically she's an environmental attorney who wages legal battles with big oil. And also a number of the scenes, especially the scenes between the exes and the oil spill in the National Wildlife, the Reserve in Alaska. A lot of that is just my imagination. So.
Got it. Well, I think that's really beautiful, first off, the way that, you've triumphed through all of this. Your memoir was a great hit, and then people wanted more. So it's great to know that you kind of took a twist on it, took a spin, and was able to fabricate a little bit to make such profound statements as well within the fiction. So I think that's something really cool that our authors listening today could learn from, the idea of twisting reality into fiction to serve a certain point or certain message. I'm wondering if you had a strategy for doing so as you began writing. Was it all part of the outline, or was it a matter of navigating as you began to write?
Well, I usually do, what we lovingly call a shitty first draft. And then sometimes I find things that I want to explore more. And fiction allows me to do that. In fact, I find that autofiction is really my writing sweet spot now. Because one of the beauties of being 75 is that I've experienced a lot, made a lot of mistakes, learned a lot, and I have a treasure trove to draw on for stories. And I think fiction authors, most of them draw on their own life. So I've done the same. But then I can also explore other things. Like Grace Paley said, write from what you know and write into what you don't know. So in A Place for Us, one of the themes that I wanted to explore was why perfectly sane, intelligent people find themselves trapped in abusive relationships. And, it's a complex issue. There's love, there's good times, and there's hope that the partner will change. And all of that sometimes entraps people into spider webs to the point that they lose their agency to act in their own self-interest. So I wanted to explore that a bit in this book, which I did.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it isn't my experience, but it's an issue that I thought would be useful to explore.
Definitely. And, by doing so, you're able to raise the topic more to the audience, provoke more conversation and everything that comes with it. Okay, Patricia, well, I just have to know, do you happen to have a copy of the book with you today to share?
Absolutely. It's called A Place for Us. And
There it is. I love it. And I love the picture too. Is that of you by any chance, or is that just
oh,
an image that was created?
no, these are like somebody else's legs.
Well, I like it though. It really, you can tell the intimacy right there with the way that they're overlapping, and it shows like, you're just looking for somewhere comfortable to lay your head and rest. And it kind of is a good metaphor for the book in general.
Yeah, I actually quite like it. And that was exactly what we were hoping for.
Yeah, and just looking for somewhere comfortable to lay down next to your partner and the person that you want to be with. And that's, the overarching theme of the book in general. So,
Alone.
did you create the cover on your own, or did you have a little bit of
No, no, my publisher did it, and they're quite good at it. She Writes Press is quite good at covers. Yeah,
That's great. That's great. Yeah, no, it's always an important thing. As much as we like to say we don't want to judge a book by its cover, it's always important to make sure it's something that is eye-grabbing and it does have a part to play in the book itself. So, really great job there. I think it looks wonderful.
great. Thank you.
So now that the book is out, has it met the goal? Have you seen feedback from readers who have spoken about the topic as well, or what do you think?
Well, it's been out for a week.
Oh, I didn't realize how quickly. Oh my goodness.
Uh,
Well, congratulations. I didn't realize it had just come out. Oh my goodness.
but had some very nice reviews, and of course, I had a number of really lovely endorsements um, that I put up in my the various retail sites. But I haven't had enough time to get much feedback from readers.
That is really funny. Well, hey, time will come, and probably by the time that, we're listening today, everybody, there'll be even more so. So that's just another great segue. Reach out to Patricia after you check this one out and see what you think. So kind of going into, more of the craft and the technique, what was it like from transitioning from a memoir to fiction? I'm sure the creative process was a lot different writing from one perspective to the next.
Well, I think writing memoir is constrained, usually constrained by real life events, and writing fiction allows me to mold and modify and use my imagination to serve the story. And I had to learn more about craft and dialogue and also story structure. So, a memoir is really designed, at least my goal was to tell a story, but also to derive meaning from the story, some universal truths that would resonate with people. And perhaps, as some people told me, allow people to feel validated and less alone in the world from reading my story. And so happened, and I was very pleased with that. And I think similarly, that could be a goal for novel writing as well. But again, I continued to take courses and learn about the craft. And writing this novel, A Place for Us, got me all fired up to write a thriller, which I have just finished. So
Really? Oh, that's really exciting. So you just finished as in it's in the editing phases, something else for us
it's
to
just
look forward
been
to?
it's just been edited, yeah. So
Wow. Okay. This is really exciting. You've really been branching out into many different genres then, huh? Like from memoir to fiction and now that. That's really exciting. Would you like to share a little bit more about that? I think the audience would be really excited to hear.
so I used to practice medicine. In fact, I did it for almost 40 years. And I think that that same ability to sort of persevere and the same discipline allows me to also learn craft and keep my butt in the chair to write almost every day. So, and also as a physician, I saw people from all walks of life, and everybody has a story. So I listened without judgment to people, pouring out their fears and vulnerabilities and worries, and hearing what they said and what they didn't say and their gestures and things like that. And I think that helped me to write more multifaceted characters. Like the exes in A Place for Us are, well, they're problematic people, but I didn't want to write them, as flat, one-dimensional characters. So they have some good points too. And I think, you know, being able to write about people who are multifaceted is important.
I think it's really amazing that you're able to do that. And it seems like characterization might be one of your strong suits based on what you've just explained to me there. Just having people that are multifaceted, like you said, and, their quirks, their pros and cons, I understand completely. But yeah, no, I get it. Let's segue back into the book that we are chatting about, a little bit of a place for us. That being said, you do battle a lot of, tricky topics, as you mentioned before. Integrating it within the story, fabricating the reality of it a little bit so that we can have these discussions. I'm wondering, while writing it, did you find any challenge in, having a good balance between these topics versus staying on plot? I'm wondering if that was a challenge for you, or was that kind of something that came naturally?
I wrote some scenes that were not familiar with me. Joe has some therapy sessions with a psychologist, and I'm not a therapist. So I had to write that both from the therapist's point of view and Joe's point of view.
Right.
Actually, it's all Joe's point of view, but I had to have the therapist sound like a therapist. So I had to consult an actual therapist who fortunately lived next door. So, to get feedback on that. And then the other scenes of just, the nature of one of their relationships with their exes and the pattern of abuse and stuff, I had to research that a little bit.
Understood. So there's a little bit of research then, in addition to perhaps interviews as well. Did you talk to specific people as well in terms of research, interviews, that sort of thing?
Sure. I mean, I did talk to, well, as I said, I talked to a therapist, but for the thriller that I've just finished, I've done a lot more because I have several trial scenes and I had to ran it by a criminal defense attorney who I happened to be on a panel with in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago. So that was very useful because I had made a couple of stupid errors. So I was very glad to do that. And then I also have a cat in there, an orange cat. And I have never had a cat, and in fact, am not particularly fond of cats, but for some reason, this cat showed up in the book. And I had to,
Wondering then.
I had to consult some cat lovers to make sure the behavior was cat-like. And I do that. And I also use AI. The thriller's based in Houston, for example, and I've never been to Houston, so I had to like use AI to maybe find out what certain neighborhoods look like um,
Okay.
for
That's
setting, things like that.
understood. That's really cool that you made use of AI also to make it authentic and figure out the setting. Can you speak a little bit more about that? That's a huge topic these days in terms of,
Yeah.
we use AI to write our books, we use it for research. Tell me how you used it for you and how is it beneficial?
Well, I only use it for research. I don't use it for writing because it's just not very good for that. Yet. Maybe it will be, but I find it's really super good for research. I more so with the thriller than A Place for Us. I use it all the time for things like where are the largest oil refineries outside of Houston and how far away are they? Who monitors environmental air quality in Houston in 1985? These are some questions that I had to ask. And also something about environmental tort cases because it's an environmental legal thriller, and I'm not an attorney, so I had to, use AI. Like, what does a judge say, when he dismisses the jury to have some private conversation with the attorneys? Does just the jury leave, or does the public have to leave as well? That kind of thing.
Understood, right. So in that way, it really does seem like you have a good balance of that. And I agree with you completely. AI should not be used to write the book completely. It should just be used to answer certain questions. And sometimes it is easier instead of going to Google and trying to find the right page and the right answer for your resource. Just plug it right in and say, hey, what's the answer to this question? And then you have it right away. That's wonderful. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really wonderful that you have not only, your current book out, but you're continuing to expand your reach. You just completed another book. I'm wondering though, of course, a lot of our authors say are going to want to get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about you. So, all that being said, where can they get in touch? Do you have any social media or blogs or websites that we can all turn to?
Yeah. Well, probably my website is the best place, which is just www.patriciagrayhall.com. So that's actually where I've had a lot of the correspondence with readers.
Okay.
And yeah, and I have an email address too. I have a Facebook page and an Instagram presence. So those are also possibilities.
Oh, perfect. Well, we'll put the links to those in the description box today. So everybody, if you want to get in touch and stay up to date, especially with the new releases, you can go ahead and check those out today. We'll put those in the description box. But before we do start wrapping up, I do want to know a little bit more, and it's a question that I do like to ask a lot of authors. Did you encounter any specific scenes in your book, for this case, A Place for Us, that you decided that were a little bit more challenging than others to write? Any particular ones that stand out more in your mind?
Well, I think, as I said, it's inspired by my experience with my wife, and we ended up immigrating to Canada, which was the only country at the time that we could be in together. So I think it was a little tricky because my partner's a very private person. It was a little bit tricky to write the story because I wanted to use our immigration experience and I wanted to use our meeting experience for the, as the basic core of the book. But I also wanted to respect, her privacy and my privacy. So that was kind of a fine line that I had to walk. And probably most people do when they write autofiction.
Of course, of course. And there might be a lot of authors listening right now who are having similar struggles. There's what they want to write about a specific time in their life, but they don't want to overstep any boundaries or offend anybody. What methods did you use in order to do that? I'm sure there was a couple conversations you might have had to have. Any tips that you might offer some of the authors today who are dealing with the same situation?
Well, for one thing, I had my partner read my book.
Okay, okay. Yeah, of course. They need to
Yeah.
know what's going in it.
Yeah, and I must say, I was also concerned in writing my memoir because I was writing about events that took place, 50 years ago. It's based in my 20s when I was stumbling through relationships and my grueling medical training in the early 70s. So I had lots of stories with former girlfriends and also my a long-term friend David, who we shared so many experiences in medical training in our personal lives. So, I did encounter concern about, would I be stepping on their toes or divulging things I shouldn't, even though it was so long ago. So I didn't let them see early drafts because, you don't want to do that because you don't want them to influence your truth, right? So
Right.
I had a strong urge to speak my truth and be authentic. So when I was finished, I did share each of their stories with them to, just to let them know. And it was interesting. And I did change some names. If they wanted me to change their name, I did. If they didn't care, I didn't. But I didn't change anything else. And I was surprised at the people who I thought would object didn't. People who, I wrote very neutral, benign things about wanted me to change their name.
Oh, wow.
It's hard to predict, but, I did feel that it was important to do that. But I also understand that people are writing about, say, they're somebody who abused them sexually in childhood or something, or still alive. They may not want to do that. So,
Right, exactly. No, I get that. And you have to be respectful of what people do prefer. You never know what's going to be their opinion on it or where they might be in life where they might want you to change their names. But it's always great to reach out, get clarification, and communicate, especially before it gets too far down the road and you come into some problems. So I definitely see where you're coming from that. So another question I always like to ask the authors on our show, what is your writing setup look like, right? I mean, a lot of people do work with computers and nice desk area. Other people enjoy going outside and enjoying the fresh air. What works best for you for the creative process?
well, most of my writing takes place while I'm in Canada, and I have a setup that's just incredible. I sit there, I have my computer, and then I look out on to the water and the Olympic Mountains in the distance. And it's pretty incredible and could be very distracting. But I usually get up about 5 in the morning and I write until 8:30, and then I go to the pool and swim. And usually when I'm swimming, I'm thinking about what I'm writing. So that's about an hour, and then I come back and I write until about 1 o'clock. And then I'm pretty much no good in the afternoon or the evening. So that's kind of my routine, but I'm pretty disciplined. I write every day. And some days, I might not feel like working on a novel, but I write something. I might write a post for my social media or a blog or something.
I like that a lot. And swimming is a great way, I think, to kind of get the creative juices flowing. That's
I have my
that's
best ideas in the pool.
That's a new one. I've heard people go on walks or maybe for a jog, but swimming, that sounds just so nice, especially with the summer coming up. Just hopping in a pool, cooling off, and then just, as you're swimming, just allowing those creative vibes to flow. That's really cool. Yeah, I guess we could recommend to our listeners today anything that it takes just to get some new ideas sparking and getting some exercise in too. We all love to sit at our desks and type, but got to get some movement in there.
Right.
So I'm wondering if you happen to have any other bits of advice for our audience listening today, anything else that you can leave them with today as a piece of guidance as we move forward.
Just a couple of things. One is that if you're just starting out to write, if you're going to share your work, pick someone who's going to be very tender with your offerings, because that moment is quite tender and can actually make or break whether you continue to go forward. And then, the other thing is as you get more used to sharing your tender work with other people, to form a critique group, because that's really helpful. One that actually where people give each other feedback constructively. And then I think, writing is not necessarily a talent. It's something you can learn by taking courses on craft and just sticking with it and writing every day, even if it's writing in your journal or writing emails or whatever, that you use that muscle and I think it gets better and better. I know each book, and I'm on my fourth one now, each book that I write, I feel like that's my best one because, I think you do use that muscle and it gets better, stronger with time, especially if you continue to take courses and learn.
Understood. Okay, well, so keep learning, keep using those muscles, both mentally and physically with the swimming too, I'm sure. Really cool stuff. I love it. Well, you've already shared with us some of the links we can best reach you at. So again, everybody, we're going to put the links to those in the description box of this podcast today. And, this has just been a wonderful conversation. I think we learned a lot about memoir writing and fiction writing, the research process, of course, the process of running it by others when you're chatting about, or when you're referencing them in the book. It's been a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and to everybody listening, just remember, Patricia's shown us that even if you have a great challenge in your life, it could become your most powerful creative fuel. She's taken her own experiences, turned it into multiple books, really been able to open up conversations within the text. So whether you're also navigating your own identity or career transitions or fighting love at impossible odds like Patricia, A Place for Us is a great way to start to read and to find hope and historical perspective on how far we've come as a society. Patricia, I think you've done a wonderful job with this. I think it's something that a lot of people need to read these days.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Of course. And to everybody listening, remember, your own story matters too. So be sure to check out some other episodes of Authors on Mission podcast for more writing guidance and follow your dreams. Check out the links in the description box for more of Patricia's work and to stay up to date. And other than that, just keep reading, keep leading, keep writing, and keep inspiring. We'll see you next time on the Authors on Mission podcast. This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.